Good morning, everybody. This is Steve calling from Montreux once again in beautiful Switzerland. Today, we are celebrating our 8th webinar in our series of climate change and the African food entrepreneur. And the topic today is really, really important. As you will be aware, as we've gone through this webinar series, we have started with some of the broad general issues. And we then have explored some of the topics around soil and water and agroforestry. And today, processing and value addition, and what that means to both young entrepreneurs in Africa, as well as to people who are working and living through climate change, when we recognize that issues of food insecurity and so forth is really, really important and challenging to all of us. So today, value addition and processing, we've got two amazing speakers today. I'm really grateful that both Markus Froehlich and Richard Thommeret have joined us. And they will be sharing some of their insights and knowledge based upon their expertise, but also the operations of their own businesses. Our first speaker today then is Markus Froehlich, who is a long-standing expert, scientist, researcher, and manager within value addition and processing circles. He has had an amazing career within the multinational sector, but now he has returned home to South Africa, where he is working to develop some business interest there within this sector. And so, Markus, you are very, very welcome today. I hope that it is not too cold in Gauteng, And I would like to invite you to speak for a maximum of 30 minutes on the topic of value addition and processing.
Maybe I just jump in and present to you who I am and what I'm doing. So basically, I'm putting up here two faces. I'm actually working with Zimba Basso and myself. We are working in the space of value creation in the food processing area in Africa. You can see Zin, so you can also read about her, but I'm going to quickly introduce myself so you understand my background. So I've been coming out of the food industry, actually in Switzerland, as you can imagine or hear from my accent. So I joined Nestle, as you might know, that's the biggest food company globally. And yeah, I thought, wow, that's an interesting opportunity. So I went into basically first R&D. So I was working in developing processes and products for many years, and was then able to move into operations, which is usually not really what you do. You stay where you are. But I moved into operations and was able to manage big factories across the globe in different continents. And I think one of the highlights which really inspired me and which continues to inspire me was working in India. So we had, actually I was a plant manager there, and we had a factory in Punjab, which was basically buying milk from smallholder farmers and also a few commercial farmers. But the beauty was we had about 50,000 farmers on the payroll on that list. And some of them, they just sold us maybe 5 liters a day and make a little living out of it. And we, in return, we were able to collect then about 1 million liters per day, which we processed into milk powder and other milk products and sold it into the big centers and even sometimes exported it under a branded product. And I think that was an amazing thing, which I think is really inspiring to connect farmers who are far away from any like towns, connect them to a market and provide them a living income. So I think that was a highlight. And throughout my career, I was always when I was in factories, I was always in areas where we connected to the agri-processing value chain or the agriculture value chain. Yeah, and then at the end of at the end of the Nestle career, I was basically going back into R&D. I was managing the R&D center in Singapore, which is a kind of a global center which is looking after brands like Milo, Maggi, and also Nescafe. So that was an amazing experience. I was then decided with my wife, we want to basically now settle, and we said, okay, we want to settle in Africa, basically. So she's from actually South Africa. We then decided to join a local initiative in South Africa to roll out food processing across the continent. So we were doing a lot of work on cassava. And that's where I met Zinma Basso, a business partner. So after a while, we then decided, okay, let's now fully focus on pushing food processing. So we have our own company, which is called AVCO. And our vision is to trigger large-scale transformations through unlocking the potential of Africa's food value chain. I want to quickly also give a brief introduction to what we are doing at the moment. So our main focus is the so-called Project White Gold. We basically want to fight poverty with entrepreneurial means. And what we do is we aim to establish a cassava industry, basically from farming to processing in South Africa, in one of the poorest areas. And we basically give access to subsistence farmers to a market. So we basically import now all the starch, the tapioca starch, and with the local production, we can replace the imports and can even export. So I think that's an amazing opportunity which can transform communities and give economic opportunities to a poor community. We chatted a bit about cassava, and maybe not all of you know cassava. I guess most of you know cassava because it's probably the biggest crop in Africa. It's the third largest source of carbohydrates. It's easy to grow, low input, high starch tuber. It actually yields twice as much starch per hectare than maize in Africa. Low water intensity, and it's an amazing crop because it's viable for low and high intensity farming. So if you have no knowledge, if you're a subsistence farmer, you can grow it. You don't need a lot of technology, but also a commercial farmer can grow it. So it's basically great. It has a great transformational potential because everybody can participate. So a few pictures on where we are with the project. So we are in an area which is fantastic. We have about 10,000 hectares available there for factory, but also for farming. And we also have a lot of upliftment programs in the pipeline to really create women and youth employment and also stimulate the local economy. You can see here we have done our first demo plot here on the picture. So we already used local farmers and local women here to create a demo plot. And in a few years, we will see them thriving and give them access to the market. Okay, so, but that cassava initiative is not coming from nowhere. We basically have done a lot of work in the last 7 years. So this is an example of an operation we set up in Mozambique. It was a mobile cassava factory, basically buying from smallholder farmers and processing it in a mobile kind of manufacturing container. And we then basically provided the finished products to one of the biggest beer brands in Mozambique to process it to Impala beer. Some of you might know or have heard of. Then also the same or similar projects we did in Ivory Coast, also setting up a mobile cassava factory. Here we actually supplied starch to Nestlé. So they were able to basically stop importing starch from France and were able to utilize the local products. Okay, so now that was my long introduction. So moving to the topic of food processing, the importance of food processing. So I'm giving quickly a little bit of an overview. What is food processing? What are the different elements of food processing? So it basically provides or plays a vital role in modern food industry, and it contributes to food safety, preservation, and value addition. And here are some key reasons why food processing is important. So number one, or number two, or number three. So number one, I put here food safety, and basically like processing techniques like pasteurization, sterilization, and also proper packaging, they help to eliminate and reduce harmful microorganisms, pathogens, contaminants, and ensure food safety. So it's an extremely important part. Then the second point is shelf life extension. If you basically don't pasteurize things, they rot or deteriorate quite quickly. So basically, food process vacuum packing helps to preserve the food for longer periods. So basically, reduces spoilage and wastage, and that's also important for storing food, especially in areas where you have a winter. You produce in summer and prolong the shelf life so you can still eat in winter. So that was the original idea of shelf life extension. The third point, convenience and accessibility. So we probably, some of us sometimes have no time to cook, so we go to the shop and buy the ready-to-eat or ready-to-cook product, so we can have a quick meal. So it's convenient. So food processing produces convenient products. They are sometimes also pre-portioned. You don't need to cut them anymore. They're nicely packed, single-serving options. Yeah, so it's also they cater for different lifestyles and dietary needs. So it's a convenience and accessibility factor. Point number 4, food processing provides nutritional enhancements. So with the technology we have now, like fortification and enrichment, we add vitamins, minerals, and other functional ingredients, and can basically improve the health status of consumers or fight deficiencies. There are like initiatives in some countries where in stock cubes, in products which are consumed, vitamins, in some areas where I know in Europe they add iodine to salt to fight deficiency. So it's a very important part, food processing, to enhance nutrition. Then the last point is value addition. It creates opportunities for value addition, the food processing. It develops new innovative food products. So it basically also opens a wider range to consumers, value flavors, textures, novel ingredients. So we can, a nice example is now in Europe, you can buy some teas and products with special ingredients from Africa, like baobab. It's a great opportunity. And I think the last point for me is, I didn't write it here, it's fun, no? I mean, food processing and what you can do is at the end a satisfaction, and should also be give fun to the producer, but also to the consumers. Okay, so now the next, that's a short introduction in what can food processing be. And in light of the topic food waste, we are looking now at food processing. Where are areas of food waste? So it can occur at various stages of the food value chain, from production to consumption. And I have put here a little flow chart where you can see the different steps in the value chain, like suppliers, farm gate. And at each step, you have basically food waste. At the farm gate or farm, sometimes you have pests, you have diseases, so you lose a lot of crop. Then on the transport, there's always spillage, or sometimes even spoilage during the transport if the climatic conditions is wrong or if the moisture is wrong. We had once a case in Mozambique. We were storing like hundreds of tons of maize, and unfortunately the maize had the wrong content, so it started to rot, so we couldn't use it anymore, so we had to dump it. Next one in the green part is concerns more the topics of food opportunity or risks of food trimming or whatever. Then also manufacturing process, so we'll talk about that later. Then also later then the transport into the trade, and then I think last but not least, retailers, the consumers. There's also a big potential for food waste. And basically, what we need to say that food waste at each stage can vary across different regions or supply chains of food types. So in countries where the food value chains are well developed, the majority of food waste happens at the point of consumption, so at the household, don't eat everything. In less developed food chains, the majority of food waste happens more in the upstream value chain, so like farming, storage of crops. Okay, so let's move now into the food waste topic in our area, or in the food processing. So understanding where food waste occurs in the value chain is crucial to implement targeted interventions and best practices to reduce waste and improve resource efficiency and promote sustainability throughout the food system. So basically, food waste is not only a topic of food security, but it's also a topic for a food processor to be financially viable. So if you reduce your food waste, you're more profitable, you have less cost, maybe also to discard food waste. So it's a very powerful tool to hunt food waste across the food processing. So the opportunities in food processing are in various areas, and actually I want to just focus on raw material now. We're not looking at water or energy. There's also a lot of, and also see where you can reduce waste, but we look at the raw material in the food value chain. And areas in processing where food waste can be reduced are many. So I'll just give you a few examples. So in terms of food recovery and waste reduction, probably the most basic example is a farm. No? So on a farm, you produce tomatoes and you sell tomatoes, but what you cannot sell is basically going to waste if you don't have food processing. So that's where food processing can jump in and basically take products which cannot be sold in the wet market and make them or process them into value-added branded products or whatever products. Like here the example of sauces, tomato sauces. So that's a very powerful tool. The next example, I'm using our own project here. So that's a kind of a schematic view of a cassava factory. And it's a powerful example of showing how byproducts are utilized. So that's also fighting waste. Byproducts are waste. So what we have in a cassava production as a byproduct is basically fibers, what you take out. And you also have effluent water. And basically the interesting thing about fibers, you can press the fibers into animal feed pellets. You can see it on the right side here. And with the effluent water, what we usually do is we ferment it, because effluent water still has a lot of sugar. So we ferment it, make biogas out of it. And the biogas you can use to power the heater, and the heater can power the dryer. But also you can power a biogas engine, which then gives you the electricity for the factory. That's amazing in this case, because you have a surplus, which you can also provide to communities around you and really bring the communities on board and involve them in your operation. The example here is is just one of many. I mean, it can be effluent, it can be other waste in the process, but we can biogas. So there's a lot of opportunities. Then another area where we can basically attack food waste is in taking a kind of a food waste and producing an innovative product. So I'm not sure if you have seen wheat bix. It's quite a common breakfast cereals. What I was always amazed here is basically what you take here to produce wheat bix is, for instance, in South Africa, it's a waste product. It's wheat bran, which sometimes has to be dumped because there's not enough market to sell. So basically, you take a waste product and process it in a way that it becomes consumable and even healthy, because it contains a lot of fibers, and you brand it and sell it. So that's an amazing opportunity. Then also another area where food waste can occur and it can be fought is in the design of products. So you can see a chart on the left which has a lot of corners, so 8 corners. When the jar is at the consumer, they probably at the end of the life of that jar, to scrape out the remaining jam or whatever is in there. And you notice that in the corners, there's always a lot of waste. So basically, the design of the product or of the packaging sometimes creates waste, or it can avoid waste. So the jar on the right is much easier to scrape out, and hence you have less food waste. It sounds like a small example, but if it adds up, it can be tons and tons of products which you can avoid if you go for a nicer or a more convenient packaging. Waste in the whole manufacturing process can be mixing losses. A mixer has some leaks, processing losses in all the different processes, evaporation losses, filling losses, packaging losses, also weighing losses. So there's always in the whole process in manufacturing have losses. Here you can see an example. I was helping a honey factory in Zambia. So by the way, they produce 300 tons per harvest. So we were looking at where can we improve the process. And I noticed that the buckets here on the right side, when they are emptied into the processing line, there's still a little bit of honey left. So we actually were weighing and we saw, okay, it's maybe not much per bucket, but we realized that looking at 300 tons of honey going through the system per harvest, this adds up to tens of thousands of dollars. So they have now implemented a different system to empty the buckets, and they saved a lot of money and also contributed, of course, to food security. And I think that's an important example. And I want to give you another example here. Let's imagine you produce soup packets, pouches with dry powder in it to make soup. And you basically lose, every time you pack one, you lose 1% of your powder, which is maybe half a gram. The value is maybe 0.1 dollar cent per pack. So you might think, okay, it's not much. But then if your production is high, like 1,000 or 2,000 tons per year of that soup, it can easily end up in $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of loss per year. So sometimes also the details are important, and which at the beginning is maybe not obvious, because at the beginning you just try to get the production going. But as soon as you scale up, small losses can easily end up in high figures. So that's the example with the packing line. Then I think you might think or ask yourself now, how can I now avoid food losses, or what should I do when I set up an operation or a food processing factory? What should I do? And actually, what the best thing is to start at the very beginning. when you set up the food processing operations. Look at the setup properly, the industrial design, and a lot of aspects. So I've listed here a few points which are important, like when you set up an operation, specify your needs, specify the correct equipment, the size, the efficiencies, design the operational setup properly. So the flows, if you have a very difficult flow, you lose manpower, you lose product. The correct technology partner, if you buy, let's say, from an equipment supplier who has maybe very inefficient equipment, you lose. Also, the right site, factory site, is important. It needs to be close in terms of logistics, but also it needs to be connected maybe to the right labor. There's a lot of aspects. You need the right people to run the equipment. You need to have the right maintenance and repair approach so that you avoid downtime and losses. A lot of companies, they have continuous improvement programs, which basically involve your employees to hunt food waste, to hunt inefficiencies and improve the process. HR is important to get the right people on board, production control, employee involvement, I mentioned. And then last but not least, the product design, recipe development. I mean, the recipe is crucial to have in the future, that it runs properly on a line, but also that the nutritional elements are right, that you have less loss, raw materials, suppliers, etc., etc. So basically, the industrial design and all these elements here are crucial to make sure that you, from the start, you have the minimum food waste and losses in your system.
Hi, so it seems that we've lost Markus just briefly there. Obviously, he was having some problems with connectivity of his broadband. So I will just give him a couple of moments just to see if he comes back. What I would ask people to do is, Markus was obviously fitting in a whole range of different challenges and opportunities for young entrepreneurs who want to operate within the food processing and value addition sector. And obviously, from the perspective of a large business, there are lessons that we can learn for a small enterprise. I'm actually going to invite Richard Thommeret from In Between International to come on. But can I just ask, if you have any questions at all, please do use the question and answer function in the Zoom platform. And then what we will do is we'll try to address your questions after Richard has finished. So I'm going to introduce Richard. Richard is somebody who I have been introduced to by a friend, and I'm really, really fascinated by the product that In Between has created, but also from an entrepreneur perspective, the process that Richard has actually gone through to develop this product that he's going to introduce to us. So
thank you very much, Stephen, for the introduction. So I would say good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Ladies and gentlemen, bonjour à ceux qui parlent en français. Thank you, Stephen, for this opportunity to present the activity of our company, In Between International. Here, the idea with Stephen we had is to present you the way we tackle an issue, an environmental issue, and to also have an exchange with you about the way how to find, I would say, solution from an issue. So with Rebecca Bahadorani, who is the founder and the CEO of In Between International, we have developed a fiber. We call it Cynthia, but we call it game-changing natural fiber. Why? Let me explain you. Today, water hyacinth, and you see a picture in the center of the slide, is a very nice flower, blue with glossy leaves, etc., very attracting. It's now a real pest. It's one of the top 10 worldwide invasive species, and it's invading more than 120 countries in the world. So it's a floating aquatic plant that is, and you see on the picture, blocking the waterways, blocking rivers, lakes, and you see on the map on the bottom left, orange spots, yellow spots. That's what the plant is here, in fact. And it's really very active plant. It's if you have 1 square meter of water hyacinth, 10 days after you've got 2 square meter, 20 days after you've got 4 square meter, etc. So it's very efficient species, but it's an invasive species. So the key question here now is, in fact, why do we have so much water hyacinth? And one of the possibilities is to I would say, look at climate change. Climate change, and you know that, has a strong impact on many ecosystems, marine, terrestrial, as it's written by the United Nations, and freshwater ecosystem. That's where water hyacinth is really living. And climate change has probably, that's written in the middle of the slide, accelerated the spread of this invasive species, water hyacinth. And you know, there's a little circle. Invasive species, they really, I would say, they are really harmful for biodiversity. And that's also causing climate change, which is, I would say, increasing the spread of invasive species, et cetera, et cetera. So the impact of climate change is here a key point on the issue of the spread of water hyacinth and its impact on the biodiversity loss. That's very important. But what can we do? The control methods. And I like the idea to say that it's an heritage. So if we are looking back to what the people try to do, they have been trying to control the water hyacinth for decades, and they try chemicals. So now you see the picture, it's in Florida, nice airboat with a professional guy spraying chemicals on the canal here. I don't want to mention the herbicide they are using, and doesn't work for water hyacinth. It just leads to pollution, and it's a cost. You know, the local authorities, they pay this guy to spray chemicals on the rivers. Doesn't work. Mechanical, that's more pragmatic. I'm sure some people know that. You know, you see the picture, it's a boat. Okay, a little bit special boat with a crane, etc. And they collect the plant, they put it on the bank. And then you leave the plant there, but the seeds can live for more than 20 years. So you're sure that next year, water hyacinth will be there. So it's just, you know, a small operation it can do, but doesn't help at all. And then the third one, the control method that have been used, especially in the south of the United States, it's a biological. So they use a small bug, Megamelus cultillaris, which is a bug that is hosted by the water hyacinth. So you have a reduction of the stem. So instead of 60 or 80 centimeters, just 20 to 30. Okay, but the plant is still there, and the insect, they spread in other places. So if we look at that, it's really an heritage. So if you have an issue like this in a region, if you look at what has been done before, there is no real solution. So you need a new technology. You need to look at things in a different way. You need to think out of the box. And that's what Rebecca did in 10 years ago. She said, okay, shall we fight it or find a use of water hyacinth? And that's the trick. We have developed a patented process from the plant collection, drying it, and then turning it into a fiber. When we dry it, we use a solar technology, so with a low environmental footprint, with some, I would say, smart technology that I don't want to disclose here. And when we had a look to the plant, if you look on the pictures that we took with the microscopes, you see these little holes, channels, etc. That gives a very specific plant structure, these microscopic cavities, and they can capture air or water, which is interesting, in fact. And also the composition of the plant is a bit different from the others. the content of lignin is really low compared to wood or miscanthus or other, I would say, type of this this fiber. So the typical properties we have measured, it's of course 100% renewable. I mean, everybody understands that if you cannot, I would say, kill it, you can, I would say, harvest it every year. That's a way to free up the rivers, the lakes, etc. So then you give a positive impact on the environment, and the people can go back on the river, they can fish, they can have economic activity, etc. But on top of that, as it's a bio-based fiber, it's also biodegradable. And there's a specific definition on that. It's really biodegradable. And then you observe that we can have insulation properties, it's about air, or absorption properties, it's about liquid. It can take up to 18 times its weight in liquids. So then you have the properties. When you have the properties of that, you need to look at the functionalities that you could bring to an object. And that's the methodology that is called techno-push. The techno-push approach that we use for our fiber Cynthia was done in a way that, starting from the properties, you try to look for potential applications. So the key properties that we put in the middle of the screen here is you have this thermal conductivity. It's clear, it's a good insulator. It absorbs mostly liquids, but oil, water, whatever you. It has very low density. It's very, very light. It's 1 cubic meter is 100 kilo. Compared to water, it's 10 times less. It's bio-based, which is good. So it's renewable. You can put it on the sticker. You can label it, and it's biodegradable. So when you have identified which properties could have a specific role in some applications, you look at potential applications. You look at that, and also what is interesting is to interview some customer and ask them what we call customers' pains. What is difficult for you? For example, with Rebecca, we had interviews with people making pots for plants, in nurseries. I say, what is the issue? Recycling issue. And we use single-use plastics, these pots. At the end of the day, they are not biodegradable. So you need to find a solution, but it's complex because it's spoiled. There is soil on the plastic. Nobody wants it. So you dump it in a landfill. It costs a lot. It's not good for the environment. So that's a pain for the customer. When you identify that, you try then to translate that pain into something that could be a solution. And then you look also at the mega trends. You do a market survey and you analyze what are the key trends on the markets, if it's growing or not, and if you have a price volatility or not, because from time to time customer has a good solution, the price is moving up and down. But if you propose something which is more flat, they will jump on your solution. And then you select partners for the co-development. So you really bring your knowledge and bring your savoir-faire in the process, and either you select big companies, they are more slow, or I would say small ones, they go fast, but they have, I would say, the market share is not the same. You understand that. So find the right size of your partner, and then when you talk about price, you talk about value-based pricing approach. You don't talk about cost. You have a need, you need to write, then you sell something which is a pen, for example. It helps you to write, but you understand that you have many possibilities of pens, many prices, but depending on what the people are ready to pay. People are ready to pay. That's it. So you make tests, you dare to try, you exchange with experts in different domains where they are not necessarily experts in fiber, but they are experts in some domains. So you make bridges between these things. And then we have developed several applications that are at different maturity stage. For example, in the center, you have thermal insulation panels. We made trials with a partner on its industrial line. So he was able to make tests afterwards, real tests with real panels for this industrial house. about thermal insulation, noise insulation, etc. So you have a real, I would say, feedback for that. And we have also been labeled by the Solar Impulse Foundation. I suggest you to Google Solar Impulse and go on the foundation. There is many solutions that are dealing with climate change because this is the focus of the foundation. And then the different type of absorption, absorbs water or oil, you know, when you have spillage. And then wood plastics composite, of course, because it brings, I would say, a bio-based content to polymers that could lower our environmental footprint. But at the end of the day, we are, I would say, focusing on the packagings and pots for plants. The customer paints, and I told you, they use today polypropylene, polystyrene. It's light, it's easy to use, but they are oil-based. It's not renewable at all. And at the end of the job, there is no recycling scheme. It's just rubbish that they put in landfill. So it's a cost. It's not good for the environment. And when you change a plant from pot to pot, then you need some people to do that. But the idea here is that you put the pots on the ground, and then it biodegrades. The roots go through, and it turns back to nature. The plant from the river to the pots in the ground. It's really circular economy here, really. So you avoid a lot of handling. So when you discuss with your customer, you think about all these schemes, problem with recycling, a lot of handling, not renewable. So you can really promote your application and make some good communication on that. So then you fix the price. So, you know, it's techno-push approach. You have your solution. So first you have an issue, water essence spreading everywhere, blocking rivers and lakes. Instead of spraying chemicals or whatever, you take it and you do something with it. You use the energy of the plant. We use solar energy to dry it, which is very low environmental footprint. We have a special process to make the pots, which doesn't require water, so it's low environmental footprint. So always thinking about what you could do with almost no energy. Imagine what you could do when you don't have money and you want to invite friends for food. You find a way. So it's exactly the same, energy or money. And at the end of this process, you have a nice product that the customers are ready to buy. And you have understood the properties that are very important for the customers. So it's really this approach, techno-push approach, and that's the team with Rebecca on the top left. Thank you very much.
Richard, thank you so much for a really passionate and really very interesting presentation. Markus.
Yes.
Hi, I'm really sorry we lost you. Can I just give you 2 minutes just to add on anything else that you think is really important from the key messaging that you wanted to share in your presentation?
Yeah, let me go through the few pictures here, because I think that's just, I wanted to give a last inspiration on opportunities, how we can turn like waste streams into value streams. Can you hear me actually?
Yep, you're coming through very clearly.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, let me quickly share the last slide. And it's just no text, so it's not scary. So basically, yeah. So I was going to show you a few opportunities or examples of how we can utilize waste and make value-added products. And these are products which grow in Africa here on the right side. Huh? So like coffee, from the coffee shells, what you process, you can basically use it as a fuel in your boiler in the factory. A very interesting example is actually cashew nut. You can see the cashew nut has actually an apple. So there are already a few small initiatives in various countries where they utilize actually the cashew apple, make juice or even beer. Then the cashew nut comes with a lot of side products like the cashew shell, which you can also use for burning. The oil in the shell you can use to basically impregnate wood, so you make it termite proof. And then last but not least, in the inside is the edible nut. Cocoa is also an interesting thing. There's a lot of waste in a way in cocoa, but you can use the waste, and I'm sure there is still new ways to be discovered. So inspiration for all the participants. Maybe you're going to the cocoa visit. Okay, to beer here in the back, that's beer spent grain, which is used in animal feed. And a very crazy example here are the mushrooms. Down there, that's mushrooms. So I have worked with a company, they're buying wastewater from mushroom factories, and they filter it with a filter. They filter the flavor out, and they make flavor which they sell to the food industry. What a crazy idea, no? Or here milk, so that's maybe something, also an opportunity for in many areas, that when you make cheese out of milk, then you have the water or the whey, and that's protein which can be recycled. Some of the factories don't do it yet. Here an example of like whatever, that's just an example here with the Maggi liquid seasoning, but any others can do that. So basically you can use press cake from the peanut pressing process and make soya sauce or peanut sauce out of it. Also here, Maggi noodles, that's a good example of, in the process, you have a lot of breakage sometimes of those noodle strands. Instead of throwing them away, you mill them and use it in a tasting. Extraction of high value, so tomato peels, usually you think, let's throw them away, but no. There's a product on the market which is using the skin. They make pills out of it, which is good for against wrinkles. So it's the collagen, or supports the collagen in the skin. Coffee decaffeination, no, that's not thrown away. When you decaffeinate coffee, utilize the coffee, sell it to the like Coke factories to add to the Coke, etc., etc. So animal feed, there's a lot of waste which can go into animal feed. And then the last one, I would say, I was very inspired when I saw this. There's a company here in South Africa, they collect waste from the bakeries and they brew beers and they call the beer toast. So what a cool idea. And here on the right side, there's also in South Africa, there's a company, they collect overripe fruit from supermarkets and they make sorbet ice cream. And sorbet ice cream is only nice and tasty if it's made of really ripe fruit with a lot of sugar. And so the supermarkets cannot sell overripe fruit, but the ice cream, they need it. So that it's a great transformation of a waste stream into a value stream. Okay, so that's, I'm not going into further details. I think the conclusion is, reducing food waste should always be the primary goal. It helps it helps the production. And there are a lot of opportunities. Thank you very much, and sorry for the connection issues.
No, thank you very much, Markus. And I think the last few words there were very, very important and timely. A few questions that have come out for yourself and Richard. And I'm going to go to Richard first, if that's okay. And there's a question about what your next steps are as a business. You seem to have got a great product, a great idea, but I'm not sure whether it is in production yet. And I'm just wondering, in terms of your business cycle, where you're going next.
You're right. It's a very good question. So first, we had to decide a place where to, I would say, free the waterways and the rivers. So where to go? So you need to go to a country where you have plenty of this, I would say, invasive species. The second question you should ask yourself is, if I manufacture the fiber on the side where I collect the plant, is the market ready to buy my little pots or insulation panels, etc., etc.? So the key point is really the crossroads. The country where we landed is the crossroad of these two things: availability of the raw material and the marketplace. And then we establish one subsidiary, Cynthia, Louisiana, in the south of the United States. Also because the local authorities were welcoming our idea. It's the first time probably they had in front of them, some people bring you a solution. So that's the first part. The second one is, at the end of the day, you need to start with the plan. So this year we start the pilot plant. So we put a little drawing on there. So you need to find a place, you need to, I would say, order the machines, and then try, I would say, first with a small scale equipment, and then step by step scale up. So we are starting the pilot plant this year and scaling it up probably next year or in 2 years. And then on the, I would say, what you should have in your head is if it's a real industry, and I like to rebound on what Markus presented. There are nice ideas always. You can find that on the web or discussing with friends, that things you can do around. It's nice, but if you want to make money with that, you need to have the right level of productivity. So if you want to make it industrial, the scale up is really critical. So we already have in our head what we intend to do. I don't want to share with you now, we don't have time, in 3-5 years, but you need to start with things, try, don't, or do it. So we will do the pilot plant with some partners, industrial partners, collecting, drying, and then turning it into a fiber, and starting to propose to our customers different samples from the real material that we will harvest in Louisiana, south of the United States. So starting the operation this year, probably making money in 2 years. Be patient.
And sometimes that's what it takes, that patience, but also the vision.
Yeah.
That you know where to go. I'm going to invite Anne on. I believe she has a question as well.
Yes, in fact, I've got 2 questions. So big thank you to Markus and Richard, fascinating presentations. So the first question for Markus, I was very intrigued about the mobile processing factory for cassava. And can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is the approximate cost of such an installation? And how far do you actually go in the process? So that's a question for Markus. And for Richard, the aspect of thermal insulation was very interesting. But if the material is biodegradable, is there not a risk that it could degrade in the, what should be a permanent construction?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for the question. So basically, it's a very interesting question, the mobility of such a plant, the tapioca plant. And I think that's where we really learned a lot, what to do and what not to do. And we basically, so I'm not giving you any investment figures because that's a concept which I would not recommend. I mean, it took a while to learn that, but basically cassava is a crop which is very intensely grown, and you don't need a mobile plant actually, because there's enough usually around the factory, enough cassava to feed the stock. The mobility is rather, I mean, it was a nice idea and it worked for a while, but then we realized also it's too costly, because then wherever you go with that mobile factory, you still need an infrastructure to build an infrastructure. So you basically over invest. And the second part is your size of that factory is very limited, because you can only put in what fits into your containers. And then it becomes very restricted. And especially if you want to compete on a competitive market, your factory size is too small to really compete. So that's the short answer.
Okay, so we're going to focus on fixed installations now.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Richard?
Yeah, thank you, Anne, for the question. I will try to answer quickly. The property of this fiber is biodegradability. It biodegrades if it's in the appropriate environment. So if you put it on the soil, under the rain, etc., it biodegrades. So I would say bio-based thermal insulation panels have been manufactured for decades. Cellulose is used, straw, etc., etc. Doesn't biodegrade. You have a lot of houses that are done in wood, even from the Middle Age. They don't biodegrade. So you need to go through certification by authorities in the country where you want to put the panel. So that's also very important, to choose your right partner in terms of industry, to be sure that you have market access and they have this capability to get the instruction. So it doesn't biodegrade in the house at all.
Mm-hmm. And the first application is going to be the plant pots.
Plant pots, because we have developed our own product and we want to shorten the value chain from the plant to the final good. And we prefer to, I would say, exercise our knowledge and better understand the fiber. It's a brand new product. Nobody has used it before. So we prefer to master that. And then afterwards, we will go and develop the other type of applications, depending on the investment as well. You know, for thermal insulation, it's a big plan. So we will go probably through partners because we don't have the money, and then we will see afterwards. So the choice is short value chain. We can really practice the fiber and understand, and that's what we want to do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Okay, thank you. We don't actually have any more time for questions. It is the top of the hour. But can I just say thank you so much for Richard Thommeret from In Between and Markus Froehlich for joining us and sharing their insights with us on their areas of interest, passion, and expertise. We will be sending the deck out to everybody after this presentation, and as always, there are a few additional resources and links to other things that might really get your brains working about what you can actually do in your local community in terms of creating, growing your value addition or processing businesses. And we will also be linking this webinar onto our YouTube site so that you can rewatch the inputs that have happened today. As always, I just need to say thank you to Ecom for supporting this webinar series. And if ever you want any more information, either on the speakers that have spoken today or indeed about the work of the Agripreneurship Alliance, please feel free to reach out to either John or myself. But again, sincere thank you to Richard and Markus. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you all next week for the penultimate webinar, number 9 in the series, Climate Change and the African Food Entrepreneur. Thank you, everybody, and I hope that you all have an absolutely superb day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Au revoir.
Thanks a lot.
Merci à tous.
Bye-bye.